Hello, hello, hello. I think I'm live. Let me know if you can hear me in the chat. It's been a while since I've done this. I think the last time I did it was like back in the DinoSwap days for Polygon. Much simpler times. Yeah, you know you're an OG if you know about DinoSwap, where you just like enter any Polygon farm and it would just go up, right? Makes you really appreciate the bull market, right? And I know I haven't been posting much recently. I've been kind of focused on making more longer form videos, videos that are still going to be relevant a couple months from now, and really focusing on education. But I feel like it's good to, shoot the shit and, maybe like do weekly live streams where I can just talk about a bunch of topics. I'm not really incentivized to like make like 5-minute videos covering news and stuff because everyone else does that. So I figured I might as well just maybe stream for like an hour, maybe, an hour and a half every single week. And similar to the format of last summer, I'll do like a little presentation, which I prepared. So maybe it's like a 15-20 minute education section. And then we can talk about whatever you guys want to ask me, right? Then we can just like do some Q&A topics or whatever. But I really don't have an agenda aside of this, so we can kind of go forward. Greg asked, have you talked about how ETH becoming deflationary, bro, is a long-term catalyst? It'll make price go up. So wouldn't that favor holding instead of using it in the ecosystem? I mean, that kind of makes sense. But also, if you think about like if ETH is going up, then that means that people are using the chain, right? People are buying ETH for gas. People are entering new farms, pool twos paired with ETH. And if people are buying NFTs, if people are participating in DeFi, then, that means that people are using the chain, which will burn more ETH. I feel like, people will always use the chain. There's always gonna be opportunities like new farms. And in this video, I'll talk about, or this stream, I'll talk more about why I expect more TVL to migrate towards mainnet. With all these bridge hacks, right? We had the Harmony one a couple weeks ago, we had the Nomad one, and there are different types of hacks. The Harmony one was a multisig one, a multisig exploit. The wormhole one was a technological bug exploit thing, and then the Nomad thing was like the smart contract bug that the team overlooked. So I'll talk about the different types of bridge risks and what you can do to potentially mitigate those risks, and why I think L2 bridges are a little bit safer than Alt L1 bridges. That's not factually true, right? Because at the end of the day, it kind of depends on how the bridge is designed. And you can argue that, the way the Optimism team or the Arbitrum team designed the bridge is like much safer than wormhole, for example. But I'll go over, all those topics, right? Okay. Someone asked about Velodrome. I'll talk about Velodrome later. My thoughts on the entire Optimism ecosystem and the Arbitrum too, right? I'll get to this section. So I'm gonna go full screen so I won't see any questions, but we'll take it from there, right? So we're first talk about bridge risks. None of this financial advice, and full disclosure, I've been doing work on this for the past couple of weeks, a couple of months. I'm not a technical guy. I have a business degree, right? So I don't really have an edge in like reading code, but I do know a bunch of people, and I've been having discussions with people in the industry. So hopefully, through this, you'll be more educated on the risks you're taking using these bridges, the risks you're taking using Alt L1s, because there's a non-zero chance that all these bridges could go down, right, or could get drained, which does pose a risk for these ecosystems. For example, the Nomad bridge, right, it got drained. I think Moonbeam was adversely affected. The majority of assets on Moonbeam were unbacked, and now the Moonbeam ecosystem is going to be set back at least for a couple months, right? So it's good to think about all these things. When the Nomad bridge hack was happening, I really didn't know like what the hell was going on, but Samson, who is one of the most famous white hat hackers in the space, mentioned that basically you didn't really need to like have the ability to like read code. There was this essentially, the thread is in the description if you want to read it, but anyone could have just went to the bridge and like, it was like a first come first serve basis. Someone called it like a decentralized looting event where, if you knew what was going on, if you knew how to take away funds, then you could like go there and just like withdraw funds, right? So this, I wouldn't necessarily call this like a bridge exploit, right? It was more of like a smart contract bug. Of course, that smart contract was related to the bridge, and maybe you can argue that no one really knows how to design like the perfect bridge, right? But I feel like it was just incompetence from the team, right? This doesn't necessarily make the Avalanche bridge or the just general L2 bridges more risky. It was just a smart contract bug. Like that led from that was a result of just the team overlooking some minor things. And then how risky are bridges really? And these are the main bridge exploits that has happened in the last 12 months. Obviously Ronin was the biggest one, Wormhole, right? Solana 1, Harmony, Multisig, and we can kind of separate this with like multisig exploits versus like tech exploits. And then the multisig exploits, right? Ronin, like Harmony, like this was like incompetence from the team, right? If there's like 7 multisigs, if there are like 7 people in the multisig and like a hacker takes control of like 4 of the multisigs, then people can drain the wallets. Nothing, I guess, from the technological perspective there, right? It was just like incompetence from the team essentially. But I think what's more important to think about are like these tech exploits, because this is like what we're all scared of, right? These tech exploits. So Wormhole, I'll go over. So both Wormhole and Qubit, they were basically the same types of exploits, and I'll go over what happened there, and then I guess risks to third-party bridges and Alt L1s in general. So with the Wormhole hack, on February 2nd, an attacker essentially minted a bunch of Wormhole ETH on Solana and instantly bridged it back to Ethereum. And how these bridges work, these are all mint and burn bridges. So if you're gonna bridge 1 ETH, for example, from Ethereum to Solana, you take like Ether, you deposit it into Wormhole, and then on the other side, you receive Wormhole ETH on Solana. So Wormhole ETH isn't actually ETH. It's technically backed by ETH in the smart contract for the bridge. So if a hacker for Wormhole, a hacker was able to mint a bunch of Wormhole ETH without actually depositing ETH on the bridge, and because they had a bunch of Wormhole ETH, they bridged it back instantly back to Ethereum, and the drain and the bridge assets were drained. So a hacker just minted 94,000 Wormhole ETH roughly just instantly and just bridged it back, and there was like nothing you can do. And I think at the date of the event, I still remember this, everyone's like panicking. I think Wormhole ETH was like trading at like 0.4 ETH. I think it was like trading at like a 60 to 70% discount because there was so much uncertainty. So whenever these smart contracts for bridges gets drained, the assets on the other chain, right, is unbacked. So it's gonna be worth less. So this happened on Harmony, right? It's like, I think one USDC is like worth like 20 cents or something, or actually probably even less than that. I don't even know, I haven't checked, but that's kind of the risk. Jump obviously backstopped Wormhole with their own ETH, so like they use their like treasury or whatever to back it up. But in this environment, no one's gonna backstop these exploits, right? Like Harmony team, like the founders like posting videos every day, like about like being optimistic and whatnot. But chances are like if the FBI doesn't catch these people, then chances are like these funds are gone. And if those funds are gone, then these ecosystems are essentially gone to zero. And if you're a founder building on these other ecosystems, and it just like messes with your whole plans, right? So from a developer perspective, the majority of the devs creating new projects that actually are trying to create value for Web3, crypto, DeFi, whatever, is probably going to build on Ethereum, just because there's less money to be, there's like less attention to be had on Alt L1s in general. So which bridges are safe, right? Obviously mainnet, Ethereum mainnet is safe, and I've already started slowly migrating assets away from Alt L1s like Near, Algorand, Avalanche back to mainnet, just because I don't want to deal with all these exploits. And like I mentioned earlier, the Nomad bridge exploit happening doesn't necessarily make the Avalanche bridge more risky, right? It's like separate issues, but I think it's all in the back of our heads. And if I'm worried about it, if you're worried about it, then chances are everyone else is gonna be worried about it. And I do expect slowly more and more TVL to migrate away from Alt L1s until the market conditions are more favorable. Is it really worth risking your funds on a bridge on an Alt L1 when prices across the board are down, right? It doesn't really make any sense. And I'll make an argument on why L2 bridges are a little bit safer, and not safer in the sense that it's like technologically better. I mean, you can argue that, right? But let's kind of go over like why I think L2 bridges are a little bit safer. And feel free to correct me if I'm wrong on this. It's just like based off of my understanding of my research. So L2 bridges are still mint and burn bridges, so it's still prone to the risks of the bridge assets being drained, right? If it becomes drained, then like assets on Optimism are unbacked. But they should be safer than Alt L1 bridges because these optimistic rollups they have this challenge period where, if you want to bridge from Optimism, for example, back to Ethereum, it takes 7 days, right? So with the wormhole hack, a hacker just minted a bunch of wormhole ETH and bridged it back instantly. And there was like no challenge period. There's no 7-day period. But if the same type of exploit were to happen on Optimism, then, if the hacker wanted to bridge back to Ethereum, then they have to wait 7 days. And then the Optimism/Arbitrum team can essentially, rug the rugger, basically. So I think that this is like one of the reasons why L2 bridges are technically safer. And from a user experience perspective, it's like, waiting 7 days to bridge back is kind of annoying, right? It sucks, but it does introduce some level of safety. Of course, this doesn't necessarily make everything safe. So, you can look this up if you want, but I'm not going to get into the technicalities. But Arbitrum bridge, it takes 7 days to bridge back. Optimism takes a week to bridge back, right? So that's the challenge period. Yeah, so, it's, you can argue like, oh, it's not decentralized, but, it's fine, at least in my opinion. If a hacker, for example, minted a bunch of Optimism ETH, right, and wanted to steal funds, well, maybe they're not incentivized to do that using the Optimism bridge because the team can roll that back, right? Because the Optimism bridge, right, the main bridge is always the most liquid. Of course, the hacker with the bunch of Optimism ETH that they mint can like go on third-party bridges like Synapse, Hop, whatever, all these third-party bridges, and then just destroy the LPs, right? So maybe someone mints like $100 million worth of ETH, and there's enough liquidity on Optimism bridge to bridge back, but they don't, like, a hacker isn't incentivized to use that because like they can't like actually rug that way. So they might go on Synapse or Hop, and maybe there's like $20 million worth of liquidity on those bridges. So maybe they just like rug like $20 million towards like Avalanche and then bridge back to Ethereum, and then they minted $100 million worth of assets, but they were only able to leave with $20 million worth of assets, right? So it's not completely safe, but you can argue that the 7-day challenge period makes things safer, even though from a user experience perspective, it's not that great. Yeah, same idea. So this is one of the reasons why I'm not a huge fan of tokens like Synapse and Hop. And I know Synapse recently introduced the Synapse chain, so it's going to be an Optimism rollup, and I'm not really sure what the ramifications are going to be for those things. But generally, these mint and burn bridges, all it takes is one bridge going bust, and then it negatively affects these third-party bridges. So I know a lot of people like Synapse, but I'm personally not a huge fan. But who knows? Maybe I could be wrong, right? If Synapse can be like an L1 staking token where it like accrues fees and whatnot, and maybe the security improves with the Synapse, like maybe that's the solution here. But generally, I'm not a huge fan of these bridging tokens. Even though if you imagine this multi-chain future, people bridging from one chain to another, collecting fees, that's pretty idealistic. But like at this given point in time, with all the uncertainty around bridges, these exploits, smart contract risk in general, I just feel like it's just better to just sit on mainnet essentially. And if you think about the solution, because this is how bridges work, right? So you can't just create like a different type of bridge. It doesn't really work like that. So like, what are the solutions to this? I think the solution is to rely less on bridges and have more native assets on chain. So let's kind of go over what this means. So on Avalanche, this is Avalanche, right? We have USDC.E and then we have like USDC, right? These .E assets are like minted assets. So it's not real USDC, it's backed by USDC that's custodied on the Avalanche Bridge smart contract, right? And it has some risk. But the USDC without the .E, these are native USDC. So Circle minted these on Avalanche, the company. So USDC, native USDC, has no bridge risk. So if you're on Avalanche and you're kind of scared about bridge risks and whatnot, then maybe it makes sense for you to only enter farms with USDC native USDC that doesn't have exposure on USDC.E and whatnot. If you go to Aave on Avalanche with V3, both Tether and USDC, these are both native USDC and USDT. So I think if you're like a DeFi developer, I think they also have this responsibility to slowly support more native assets instead of just relying on bridged assets. If every chain had native USDC, USDT, maybe even like native wrapped Bitcoin. I'm not sure if that exists yet, right? We wouldn't have to worry about these bridge exploits. Avalanche has them, Algorand, Near. I mean, these other chains always say they're going to have native assets soon, but if these Alt L1s don't have native assets, then you're always going to be prone to this potential exploit. And for me, like I literally do this full time, right? So I'm literally in front of my screen like most of the day. So if something bad happens, I can bridge back, right, faster than the average person and save like whatever is left, right? But generally, it's if you like work a full-time job, you're on vacation, then it's not good for your sleep, right? Yeah, definitely not good for your sleep. So going back to this idea of people going risk off. When I say that, I don't necessarily mean that people are gonna just sell more assets into stablecoins. I think people are gonna go risk off into mainnet, which is the safest, and then potentially L2s. And with gas fees being so low on Ethereum, I mean, it's not that low, right? I mean, it probably costs like $10 to do a swap on Uniswap and whatnot, but it's a lot cheaper. And if Ethereum block space demand is pretty low, then there's gonna be less demand to use Alt L1s. And I'll talk about that later too. And we kind of see this trend. I think Aave kind of got wrecked. I mean, not wrecked that much, but they had some bad debt on Harmony with the whole Horizon Bridge or whatever being exploited. So, Mark Zeller, who works for Aave, he's even proposing to just freeze the Aave market on Phantom. And I expect more and more DeFi big boys to focus more of their attention building on ETH, building on L2s, instead of trying to expand on other chains. So, thinking about the incentive of the devs and thinking about the incentive of individual users, traders, institutions, and whatnot, I think it makes sense for more I think it makes sense for ETH TVL dominance to go up, and therefore more development to happen on Ethereum, at least in the bear market. Of course, when the bull comes back, then yeah, like people would give no fucks about bridge exploits, right? And they're gonna bridge like some random chain to like enter like 5-digit Ponzi's and whatnot. But right now, I just think it makes sense to go risk off in whatever way that makes sense for you, and try to minimize the amount of unforced errors to make in this market. Because if you think about your edge right now, the fact that you're watching this live stream probably means that you're actually interested in crypto, right? Like you're like here to stay. Hopefully, I don't know. All right, I have no idea who you are, but I feel like people's edge generally in this market isn't like buying low, selling high on like ETH, right? Trading ETH. Of course, if you're good at that, then like feel free to do it. But I feel like your edge right now, if you're watching this, is just being interested in markets and looking for new opportunities. That's what I'm doing too. There really aren't that many opportunities, to be honest. But just don't take on unnecessary risk, right? And if one bridge exploit is going to destroy your entire portfolio, then maybe it's worth diversifying. And perhaps a truly multi-chain future. Even Vitalik said this, the future is multi-chain, but not cross-chain. Because of these bridge exploits, he kind of foreshadowed this. And maybe we won't get to that future until these bridges are more battle tested and or more native assets are issued on-chain. Yeah, and not all bridges are like made equally, right? The Avalanche bridge is safer than the Algorand bridge, technically, right? Because it's more battle tested. Avalanche bridge custodies more assets, and it's yet to be exploited. So, it's kind of the Lindy effect, right? The more something's been around, the safer it is. Like Aave is safer than like an Aave fork that launches like last week or something, right? It's really hard to quantify risk. So I don't want to say L2 bridges are safer or that bridge is risky, because I mean, like I mentioned earlier, Nomad bridge exploit happening doesn't necessarily make the Avalanche bridge more risky, but it makes people think more about it, and that's kind of the point. Yeah, I already said this. Yeah, and you can also argue that, with all these bridge exploits, maybe more hackers have their eyes on bridge exploits potentially. So maybe that's why it becomes incrementally risky, because more and more, malicious actors are looking at bridges. But, there's that, right? Yeah, maximize your sleep-adjusted returns. Your edge is being in the markets, not taking on necessary risk. So be careful out there. So, that's one idea, right? On why I expect, why I think it makes sense to focus on like mainnet plays or ETH, L2 plays, right? And if you look at like whatever's pumping today, it's like Optimism, it's like liquid staking derivatives like LSD, right? LSD, like Lido, Rocket Pool, Stakewise, they're all doing really well. And you know, they all have like their good reason for doing so. And Alt L1s, I mean, like I was like the L1 rotator, right? I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going into Polygon, Matic, I'm going to Avalanche, I'm going to Phantom, I'm going to Luna, I'm going all these chains. But you know, conditions change obviously. And Alt L1s did really well in the past 2 years because ETH couldn't scale, right? A bunch of people use Ethereum, gas goes up, not everyone can afford that, so they go on like cheaper chains. L2s could disrupt that narrative, right? If they can actually handle the load. Arbitrum couldn't handle the load, right? They had the Arbitrum Odyssey event, and then, you know, I think week 2, everyone tried to use GMX, and then everyone like spammed the network. The chain kind of went down, so they paused it, right? So, you know, Arbitrum, not sure if they're going to scale that well. They're going to launch Nitro sometime in August, I believe. So hopefully, you know, that makes things better. And Optimism has yet to really see like an influx of users, even though they have been experiencing an influx of users, and it has been functioning pretty well. So, you know, there's, I guess that's a boost of confidence, right? I remember back in March of 2021, I think the Optimism team said, we're going to launch on mainnet like 2 weeks from now, right? March of 2021. And then a week later, they were like, we're delaying our launch to July of 2021. And then it took literally like 12 months for, you know, the L2s to gain adoption. So I feel like it's good to temper your expectations on how ready these L2s are. But, you know, if these L2s can handle the load, it can actually scale, then the Alt L1 narrative kind of weakens, because these Alt L1s, I mean, they were great during the bull market, right? But, you know, all the projects are just basic forks, and there are like small teams, like there are individual teams like trying to innovate, trying to ship and whatnot. But, you know, the majority of the innovation that I'm excited for is happening on mainnet and L2s essentially. And if you go to DeFi Llama, you see this, and let's focus on L1 and L2s, right? So ETH like 57 billion, Arbitrum almost $1 billion, Optimism roughly 600 million. I included Metis in there, right? Because people love the mommy chain and whatnot, but, you know, it's like no one uses Metis, right? So, you know, these are the numbers. And Optimism token has gone up a lot, and, you know, it's kind of dangerous, to be honest. But, you know, I do think it has legs. Because if you think about, you know, L2s, if mainnet TVL is, let's say, 60 billion, just to make things rounder, right? Rounding things. Like, is it reasonable for L2s to capture 10% of mainnet TVL, right? If ETH TVL is 60 billion, then what if L2 TVL is like 6 billion, right? That seems reasonable. What if it's 20%, 12 billion? That's also pretty reasonable. So, you know, I think it's reasonable to expect more capital inflows to these ecosystems, and it could create a rising tides lifts all boats scenario. I know the OP token, yeah, so I think it's like $2. I took the screenshot maybe like last week or something, but, you know, this is pretty constructive, because if you think about airdrop tokens and the historical charts, I think a good example that I like to show is the Uniswap token and like the Boba network token, right? Because airdrop tokens have two fates, right? Everyone usually dumps the airdrop token in the first couple of weeks, and everyone that wants to like sell have sold, right? So if it's able to build out a base and get to like its previous all-time highs, it's generally a good sign of strength. And this is like what happened on the Uniswap governance token. I think it was like $4. It like nuked to like $1, and then it like made it around to $50. Right? I'm not saying this is gonna go to $50. Right? The market cap is like way too different, but pretty constructive. Like Velodrome, I'll talk about this more later. But, you know, I think it's like 8 cents right now. But, you know, it's also doing super well. It definitely caught me by surprise. The market cap is like, this is like what, $1.60. So like maybe the price is like 25% higher. So yeah, it's almost like a $500 million market cap. So is that undervalued, overvalued? I you know, it's impossible to know. The OP token, I kind of memed about this in like a video I made like last month or 2 months ago. It doesn't really have any value core, right? It's just a governance token. You can't really use it for gas. But if you put a gun to my head, it probably goes higher. I actually missed out on this. Maybe you can argue that, like, how can you miss out on this? Like, you're the L1 rotator. But I was like focusing my buys on like mainnet tokens and not L2 tokens, but like maybe that's my fault. But, you know, I'm keeping my eyes on the L2s. But if you think about value accrual and like tokens going up, I think people kind of mid-curve this too much. They just say like, oh yeah, like OP token, like you can't stake it, like it's not gas, like no one's gonna buy, right? I mean that's a very, very valid argument, right? I get behind that. But if you think about L1, L2 tokens, whatever, no one really buys these tokens because they need it for gas, right? This is a really, really common misconception in the crypto markets and in the DeFi markets. If you think about the Matic days, right? Matic like 100x, even though transaction costs were like 0.0001 cents, right? Like no one is buying Matic April of 2021 because they need it for gas. They are buying Matic to speculate on the narrative, and they are buying Matic to enter farms, right? Because if you think about farms on Matic, all the liquidity pairs are paired with Matic, right? If you're launching a new token, you pair your token with Matic, right? So if more liquidity flows onto an ecosystem, then that naturally increases the demand for a token like Optimism because you need Optimism to farm. For Velodrome, for example, the most liquid DEX pair, or like one of the most liquid DEX pairs that's not like a stable swap, right? Is like OP USDC, right? I believe. So, if more liquidity flows into Optimism ecosystem, right, people will naturally buy Optimism because they need it to farm, essentially, right? Yeah, this is like, I kind of memed about this like back in the day. I called it like number go up technology. Like no one buys these gas tokens for gas. They buy it to speculate and to farm on the chain. So if there's more activity and speculation, if the TVL of Optimism increases by 2x from now, right, then there's gonna be more demand for the Optimism token, and like more demand than supply, right? No one purchased like $100,000 worth of Solana because they needed to like pay for gas, right? They purchased $100,000 Solana because they wanted to like degen it up, right? They wanted to farm, they wanted to buy some NFTs. That's kind of how it works. Yeah, like I feel like L2s have more room to run in terms of TVL, and if that's the case, I do expect more buyers and sellers for these tokens on average. I don't own any Optimism tokens. I'm not like, none of this financial advice, obviously, but this is kind of how liquidity works, capital flows work in crypto. I don't really have an edge in like TA and stuff. I feel like I have a pretty good idea of like where money flows to, and this is like how I think about things. If I think about like just L2s, L1s in general. Yeah, so I don't know what the slide is. Yeah, and yeah, like VELO like doing well is like pretty constructive actually. It's funny because I'll talk about this later too, but like it's funny because like all these Phantom projects are like forking their app from Phantom and like going on Optimism. So maybe like maybe Optimism is like the new Phantom, right? Maybe that's a good or bad thing. Who knows? Not good for Phantom, obviously. Like VELO is like $40 million market cap. It's like pretty high. I'm not really sure what juice is left. But who knows? Like maybe I'm like mid-curving this. There was this event where there was like this locking thing where if you locked up a certain amount of VELO, you could get like some OP token airdrops, and price ran up before this, and then after the snapshot, like it's kind of like corrected. So who knows? Like maybe if VELO continues to show strength, like that's very, very constructive for the fundamental. And like if you think about like VELO, right? Yeah, if you think about VELO, it's kind of funny because like solidly on Phantom, it launched, right, and it like just went to zero. Like we never got to see solidly like actually implement like what it could be, right? Because solidly launched and then like Andre like left for like mental health reasons or something, which I do respect. Maybe people don't respect it, but I kind of empathize with Andre, because I've been in this space, in DeFi space, and he always gets shat on, right? He just always gets shat on. So I mean I'm not defending him, but the point is like we never got to see solidly in action when there was like actual like attention towards solidly, and like actually like people were actually building on it, right? Because the Velodrome team, like I mean they're pretty active on Twitter, so I'm assuming that they kind of know what they're doing. And then this is Tarot, the leverage yield farming protocol on Phantom. They're also moving to Optimism, so maybe we're gonna like even Beats, right? Beethoven came to Optimism, so maybe Optimism is a new Phantom, and Harry Ye is forever sad, but he probably not, because he's probably like sold a bunch of his FTM anyways. That's Optimism. I'm almost done, right? I'm almost done, so I'll answer questions about Arbitrum, and hopefully I'm not getting rugged, right? Because I don't see the the stream screen, so hopefully I'm not talking into the void. But I personally like the Arbitrum ecosystem much better than Optimism. I think the Arbitrum ecosystem is much more mature than the Optimism ecosystem. Lack of a token, obviously not great. They're going to have a token at some point, probably sometime this year. So I feel like once Arbitrum launches a token or announces a token, a bunch of liquidity will come into Arbitrum. Obviously, there's uncertainty around Nitro, right? Because they had this Arbitrum Odyssey event, right? You do weekly tasks, you get an NFT. People speculated that if you get these NFTs, if you collect these NFTs, you might get some Arbitrum token or something. But 1 week, a bunch of people bridged to Arbitrum, a bunch of people used the chain, it went down, right? So they delayed Odyssey, and they said that we're gonna resume Odyssey when Nitro ships. And Nitro is supposed to improve the user experience and make things faster and cheaper. So I'm looking forward to that. And this is July 25th. They mentioned that, so our intention is to upgrade mainnet within a couple weeks after a successful testnet migration. And testnet migration happened, it's not yesterday, but maybe a week ago. I think 28th or something of July. I forget the actual date. But they mentioned that, Nitro will ship within a few weeks. And they essentially, shipped this end of July. So conservative estimate, mid to late August, Nitro should ship. And then if Nitro ships, then Odyssey will resume. And if Odyssey resumes, people are probably going to use the chain. So, I think it makes sense to think about, which projects might benefit from an increase in TVL on Arbitrum. I think GMX is a good one, right? GMX, ever since I made that video, I don't even know when, last month, it's up 3x almost. It's pretty insane. And then there's other projects too. But so here's a question for you guys, and it'll test your, L1, L2 DeFi knowledge. It's what do you think is missing from the Arbitrum ecosystem that exists on other L1s and even L2s, Optimism? And this could be controversial, but no, actually, let's see the stream. Let's see the chat. Okay, so I made a slide like a week ago, or I started on this slide a week ago. So yeah, the numbers are wrong on Optimism price, but it's live. I'm live. I'm not this is not pre-recorded, right? Maybe I need to put a shoe on my head or something. Money market. They have a money market. They do have a money market, but it's not that. I think what's missing. So Optimism has VELO, which is the native DEX, right? And of course, technically, Arbitrum has a DEX in terms of Sushi and Uniswap, and technically GMX. But if you study history of other L1s and L2s, or just any change in general, there's always a native DEX that's native to the ecosystem that generally has the highest TVL. Arbitrum lacks a true native DEX, right? For example, and the reason a native DEX is important is because if you're launching, for example, Sushi is on all chains, right? But they can never really introduce good farming rewards because they can't be their token can't be giga inflationary for on all chains, right? It doesn't make any sense. So the APYs are always low on SushiSwap. Uniswap, great technology, concentrated liquidity is the future of finance, AMMs and whatnot, but it's hard to gain liquidity because it's a pain to understand how to provide concentrated liquidity, and you can't really farm Uniswap. So on every chain, there's always a DEX that introduces a new token that will introduce 3-digit APY, 4-digit APRs. So I think that's missing in the ecosystem, and I don't count GMX as a DEX because they can't really list long tail assets. You can argue that they're going to list synthetics and whatnot, but synthetic assets and whatnot, but I don't necessarily think that it works like that. I think Arbitrum will benefit if someone makes a native DEX, ideally with docs founders, verified code and whatnot. So if Arbitrum does launch, if one emerges, it might be an ape, right? It's something that I'm looking forward to. I don't care about SushiSwap. I don't care about Uniswap, even though I do think Uniswap is a good token. Will be a good token. But looking for a new DEX to launch on Arbitrum. That could be interesting. Final thoughts. Yeah, I think for a majority of people, I think your edge is staying in touch with the markets. Not like buying scams, not getting rugged. Being conservative. Because if you think about the way to think about it is, think about yourself like 12, 24 months from now, right? Like how I think about it is like, what would future Taiki want me to do, right? What would future Taiki want present Taiki to do? I think future Taiki would want present Taiki to just start accumulating interesting DeFi assets that I think are down 80, 90%, and just buy and hold and, ride it towards all-time highs or like whatever, hopefully, right? I have no idea if I pick, like, for example, GMX, FXS, right? I made those 2 videos. I think those are great assets. I think they're going to get to its all-time highs, not financial advice. I didn't buy those assets to flip for like a 50% increase, right? Or whatever, right? I'm like holding this and like, writing it out, right? Writing it out. So I feel like that's my edge. I feel like for most people, that's your edge. And of course, if you're a good trader, like, feel free to trade and whatnot. But the way I think about the markets right now is I consider GLP and Tri Crypto as my benchmark. Because GLP and Tri Crypto, amazing assets. Tri Crypto is incredibly overlooked. It's an amazing asset, or it's an amazing way to gain exposure into markets. Like these 2 assets, or these 2, I guess. Yeah, I call them assets, right? But LPs. It tracks the majors, pays good yield. So if you're buying something, let's say you're buying something with like 5%, 10%, 20% of your portfolio, like, it has to outperform Tri Crypto or GLP, right? Because if you're not outperforming that, then like you should like buy these assets or hold these assets. Of course, these assets have their own risks and whatnot, but I think it's been significantly de-risked over time, because it's been around. Yeah, and if you think about mainnet, migrating to mainnet, then maybe people will be forced to just do less transactions, right? Because if you're on like this cheap chain, maybe you're incentivized to like degen it up, like flip these coins because it's so cheap. But generally, you kind of get wrecked in slippage fees, DEX fees, like all that stuff, gas. So maybe it's enough incentive, or that like going into mainnet and even L2s maybe is a good enough incentive for you to just do less transactions in general, and just focus more on fundamentally driven like analysis, research with a longer term time horizon, incorporating farms and whatnot, right? I'm not really interested in like delta neutral farming and stuff like that right now because everything is like down so much. I feel like the opportunity is just like identifying assets that will appreciate once the markets are are in more favorable conditions. And you can argue that like those assets don't exist yet. There's gonna be new launches in like early 2023 that's gonna pump a lot. So like there's no point buying anything right now. And maybe your pessimistic view is correct, right? I have no idea. But I'm like always just looking for new things to buy and whatnot. So yeah, and like GLP, like it prints, like this is insane, right? GLP and Arbitrum 29% paid in ETH, Avalanche, some escrow GMX, Avalanche, it's great. So I think that's it. So let's read a chat. I'm tired. Okay. I don't even know how long I've been going. Let's see. Yeah. Put a sheet on your head. Can you comment on the Harmony Bridge situation? Most likely going to 0. Native dexes are bearish. I mean, I do think like UniV2 forks generally are just like bearish, right? As in like it's the future of AMMs, I think, is going to be concentrated liquidity. You see this trend on all chains, right? Like Uniswap always innovates in some way, and then like other projects fork like that, right? Like UniV2 launched, and then everyone forked it, and that was like the hot thing. And then UniV3 launched last year, and they had like this like some IP thing where like no one could fork it for like 2 years or something. But you see Orca, a DEX on Solana, implement concentrated liquidity via whirlpools, and also Trader Joe and Avalanche. They're also introducing concentrated liquidity. If you have ever used like DeFi, if you've ever been an LP, I feel like it's pretty simple. Like I feel like UniV3 concentrated liquidity is going to be the future of finance, or not the future of finance, future of AMMs, and how people will swap, or concentrated liquidity will be how people swap NFTs and tokens, right, for other assets in the future. I feel like that's a general trend. So I feel a native DEX on Arbitrum, I think will have short-term fundamentals, might get to like, I think VELO peaked at like $50 million market cap. So I think it'll peak at like maybe $50 million market cap, maybe lower. But there's like some opportunity there if you're interested. I'm not going to make an individual video on it, right, in this environment. But if you're watching this live stream, I'll just like share that idea. Yeah, Radiant is built on top of Stargate. I think that's interesting. I'll talk about Radiant more, but Radiant's kind of sus. Let's see. Stargate fee switch. Yeah, I mean, VE Stargate holders get 1 basis point of all swap fees, which is like nothing, right? Because right now the cross-chain, multi-chain narrative is pretty weak. So there's not that much activity like bridging and whatnot. So, bridging tokens, Stargate, stuff like that. It's only going to do well once Ethereum gas fees come back on. I think that's the case for the majority of these assets. Like you have to wait for Ethereum activity to come back, whether it's due to NFTs, DeFi, whatever. A bunch of these tokens won't do well until Ethereum gas fees are back for whatever reason, right? Let's see. Has Phantom had its day? I think so, unfortunately. Yeah, I think Dopex is interesting. Dopex and Ribbon I'm looking at as option plays, as like decentralized option plays. I'm kind of just wary of like Tetranode projects in general. I feel like for Tetranode projects like, what is it? Dopex, Jones DAO, Vesta, JPEG, like stuff like that, right? Like Tetranode incubator projects. I feel like the hype to fundamental ratio is like way skewed to the hype side. Because everyone knows about Tetranode projects, so I don't think there's like a huge edge in like buying Tetranode coins, right? Like but I'm like tracking like Dopex, right? I mean, I think Atlantics are interesting, where I think you can lever long ETH, but you won't be liquidated on GMX because with Atlantics via like put options or something, you'll never be liquidated, stuff like that. I think that's interesting, but it's yet to be seen. What's your take on Curve and Convex for the future? I like Curve. There was a study that there was a piece written by Delphi recently, Delphi Digital, which essentially said that for the majority of swaps, token swaps for like majors like Ethereum stablecoins, Curve offers better execution than Uniswap. But the majority of the trades go through Uniswap because 1, Uniswap is more gas efficient, and 2, people are so familiar with the Uniswap UI that even if people can get better rates on Curve or like DEX aggregators like 1inch, they just go on Uniswap to swap, and people don't care about like missing out on like incremental improvement like 0.05% if they use Curve and whatnot. I do think Curve is interesting. The Curve stablecoin, I heard that like, I mean, this is not confirmed, but someone sent me this screenshot where apparently it's going to be like an over collateralized stablecoin that's backed by TriCrypto, and it's going to make for like, it'll be difficult for you to be liquidated because it's going to like automatically liquidate your position into a stablecoin if your health factor or whatever goes too low. It's not confirmed, but I think it's going to be a stablecoin backed by TriCrypto. That's what I heard. I have no idea if it's like the demand for Curve USD, like who's going to mint Curve USD, right? Like, and like when the Curve USD thing got announced, like Curve went up like 20%, but Curve USD was like public knowledge for like a couple months. So I was like, who the hell is buying Curve because of this news? But I don't know, like maybe people don't pay attention DeFi, so like they just like hear Curve USD and like they just buy. I think the Go stablecoin is interesting too by Aave. I think the only up-only market in crypto is the stablecoin market cap. So I don't think these stablecoins are competing with each other. I think they're all going to benefit. I think if Go pairs a stablecoin with like Frax BP or something, like that's good for my Frax bags, right? FXS bags. I do own some CBX recently. I bought it recently. I'm not interested in Cosmos. Similar, like I said, like Alt L1s not going to do that well. I think DYDX chain is interesting, but Evmos got wrecked. I feel like the Cosmos ecosystem can't catch a break, right? Like everything just bad happens to the Cosmos ecosystem. It's kind of unfortunate. Let's see. Yeah, the Riven ETH call providers got wrecked a couple weeks ago. I saw that too. I think people deposited ETH and like they lost like 20% or something. So I feel like option products are just like, it's very, very difficult to create a good product that like simplifies, like, I don't know, like options for retail, I guess. So I don't know, like maybe like Dopex is a great idea, but maybe Dopex and Ribbon are great ideas, but the execution part is like too difficult. Let's see. Wrapped Bitcoin risk, I don't think. I mean, if you're worried about wrapped Bitcoin risk, then you should not be in DeFi, I think. Let's see. Okay. Good stable yield options on mainnet. Convex. Actually, let me share this. Actually, I need to make sure my wallet is not doxed. Let's go here. Convex. Right, like it's so sad, right? Like I went from DinoSwap to talking about Convex farms. Like that's so sad, right? Like we're in this environment. Yeah, I think this is fine. Okay, I can share this. This is Convex. Let's see. So my FXS is here, CVX FXS, and my Convex is locked. Whether that's good or not, but try crypto 18%. That's pretty good. Justin Sun stable, maybe not. I think LUSD Frax BP is pretty interesting. Pays 21%. Not too bad. LUSD liquidity stablecoin over collateralized by ETH. I think this is interesting. And yeah, I mean it's not too exciting, right? There's not that much demand for leverage, so native stablecoin yield is like pretty low. So you have to look for farms on Convex. And if you track a bunch of whale wallets on Ethereum, like all of them have assets on Convex. I feel like this is like the de facto place for people to like farm stablecoins with, right? Especially because you get the curve boost and whatnot. Let's see what the TVL is here. Let's see. And you can kind of see, right? Like, I mean, since early 2021, the TVL dominance, I guess, for ETH has gone down. And ever since like the Luna thing, after Luna, the TVL dominance for ETH was 64%, and now it's like what, 65%. So I feel like I'm not saying that it's gonna go up only, but I feel like it's gonna the trend of like down is probably gonna be met by a trend of sideways to up, probably. Yeah. I mean, yeah, these networks are going pretty well. Pretty cool. Hey Tom. Let's see. Arbitrum airdrop. Nobody knows. I was like doing like swaps on Uniswap like once a week across like multiple wallets in case they do snapshots. But they're gonna have Arbitrum Odyssey. Like if you want, that's probably gonna be the airdrop, right? Like you like there's like weekly tasks. You get this Odyssey NFT. It's probably gonna be tied to an airdrop. If it's not, then people will be pissed, right? So I feel like that's good. Am I still bullish on the Near ecosystem? I do like the Near ecosystem, but like everything I've showed, right, is like I expect more activity to happen on mainnet, and L1s, alternative L1s, can't do well until ETH activity picks up. So if you think about the order of operations, like Alt L1s can't sustainably do well if ETH L1 gas fees are like low, right? Like that's just like how it works. So I think it makes sense for you. I mean, this is for me personally. I could be wrong. I think it makes more sense to just focus on mainnet and L2 plays. And once activity comes back sustainably, then that's when Alt L1 narratives can start to pick up. I am farming on Ref Finance. I think that's the best stablecoin farm. That's not on mainnet, but I'm not going to show it too hard because there are risks. Yeah. ASMR. Okay. Frac stablecoin. Concentrator auto. Yeah, concentrator is interesting, but I don't want to take on additional smart contract risk right now. I'd rather just like put it on Convex and like farm that way. Let's see. Okay. Here's some radiant. Okay, I'll talk about Radiant Capital. I need to pull something up because I need to show some wallets. Oh, let's kind of first go over like what Radiant is in general. Let me go on Radiant, connect on Arbitrum. Am I connected? Okay, hold up. Okay, there's this. Okay, so this is Radiant. It's a money market on Arbitrum. Cross-chain lending, borrowing. Ooh, interesting. Ooh, Geist fork. Yeah, it's like the same thing as Geist, right? It's like the high APRs, people are looping assets, and I saw this when it launched, like within like 12 hours. And then I was checking the chain, and there was like a bunch of weird things that's happening. So let me pull that up. I need to find that one sec. Is it this one? Hold up. Oh yeah, okay, so it's this wallet. Oh no. What the heck? One sec. Sorry, I'm trying to pull up these wallet addresses on DBank so I can show what was happening. Okay, there you go. Okay, so I'll just show this because it's kind of illustrates what was happening. So this is some wallet address. I have no idea who this is, but it's somebody. And on the 22nd, this person tornado cashed like 30 ETH onto this wallet, right? So some whale or whoever wanted this wallet to not have any trace, so they used Tornado Cash, and they were able to anonymously deposit 30 ETH onto this wallet. They deposited some ETH on Aave for whatever reason, bought some Stargate for whatever reason, bridged it to Arbitrum, and then bought some GLP. I don't know what's happening here. And then if you scroll up, yeah, so I think Radiant launched the 24th. So it's like a couple hours after they launched, like there were a bunch of these addresses that like swapped it for like Radiant, right? So like they purchased a bunch of Radiant tokens. And then, so this is the 24th, 2 p.m. And then on the 25th, 1 p.m., they started dumping Radiant for ETH. You could, and then they made some profit, and then they bridged it back to Ethereum. So there were like 3 of these wallets that were doing this. I think the Sifu wallet was also doing this. So when I saw this, I was just like, even if this isn't like, even if the team is not malicious, I just feel like it's not good to like, get into something like this. Checking this other wallet before I show it on the screen. Actually, no, this wallet's whatever. But there's like 3 wallets that were doing this. It's kind of sus. I think it's kind of interesting. They use Stargate where you can like lend and borrow assets cross-chain. And from a tech perspective, it could be interesting. But from a token perspective, I just feel like there's a bunch of these people that knew about this launch beforehand. Like this was supposed to be like a stealth launch. Like no one was supposed to know about this. But then you check the chain and there's like a bunch of these like whale wallets that like front ran people that like bought this. So I just feel iffy, like, I just feel iffy about it, but who knows? I don't want to FUD it because like, you know, I know nothing about the team, so I don't want to say that like, you know, like they're bad or something, but you know, you have to look at things like this. It's just like very, very dangerous. Okay. Crypto meme recommendations. Stock Dart. Wait, no, Stock Dart? No, that's not it. Stock Mart. Wait, is this safe for... he's got the best memes, I think. One sec. Okay, hold up. Yeah, he's probably the best meme account. He's one of my favorites, Stock Mart. You can kill a fund, but not the idea. I love this meme. I also love... I also love this meme, right? Couple more liquidations and up only, right? Like that's the best meme. Anyways, enough about this. Okay. Oh, was that Sifu's wallet? I mean, well, Sifu had one of the like multiple wallets, so Sifu was also front running it, right? So. I can show that, I guess, but I'm not going to show that. Yeah, the app itself is interesting, but you know, I've been so bearish every single money market token, like historically, aside from like Aave. So I don't necessarily think that it's different here. And also like money market, like they're not like great businesses to invest in, right? So I'd rather focus on something else. Yeah, Sifu, and then other whales knew about it, and then I'm like, I would like be generally cautious of like whatever is being shilled on Twitter. I've seen a bunch of projects like there's like some coordinated shilling thing happening, and you know like my videos, I want to focus more on like, you know, education, like longer term value, right? So I feel like GMX and FXS, those videos were fine, right? Because it's like it's an hour-long video. I'm not like showing, because anyone that's like, you know, looking for like 5x pumps, like they're not going to watch an hour-long video, right? So I feel like those videos only attract people that are actually interested in DeFi. So hopefully throughout these, like with these longer videos, I can like filter out like the moon boys. Let's see. yeah. Jay knows what's up. Okay. Any more questions? What assets are you buying? Aside from GLP Trade Crypto, I mean, yeah, I'll just say like GMX, FXS, and CVX. I purchased those recently. But I'm looking into Arbitrum projects, and maybe new launches on Optimism. Right? I'm like, every day I'm like, refresh. Anything new launch? No. God damn it. All right. I do think once Arbitrum has a token, they're gonna potentially be like maybe even top 5, to be honest. Because Solana happened, right? I mean, like this thing happened. Everyone was like scared shitless. I was kind of surprised that like the markets didn't dump on this. Like I was about to have dinner, and then like everyone was like retweeting this like Solana hack. So I think it had like something to do with like this wallet thing called Slope. I never used it, but you know, I think like $6 million were stolen. I mean, maybe that's an indication of market strength, right? If the markets aren't nuking on this news, like if this news came out like 2 months ago, I feel like the markets would have dumped like 5% at least. But you know, now that the majority of the selling has happened, I feel like the markets are more resilient to bad news like this. I'm like, oh my god, OP token. Up so much. I missed out on this, so bad me. NFTs. I'm bullish on NFTs, but I don't really have an edge picking NFTs, so I'd rather invest in like NFT infrastructure, but I'm still looking for things like that. Let's see. Anyways, I've been going, how long have I been going on? Let's see. It's been so long since I've streamed. How do I even check that? What? An hour maybe? Wait, what? Oh yeah, basically an hour. It's 3 p.m. here. I have no thoughts on Sui and Aptos. I don't know, it just doesn't really matter. It's like you can't really do anything actionable, so I don't really spend too much time on I'd rather wait for the chain to launch and for applications to launch than doing some gigabrain analysis of Sui and Aptos captures this segment of the market, therefore Solana is going to lose 20% market share in this. I don't think it's really worth your time generally. Yeah, all the tokens I bought or all the tokens I own, that's not like Bitcoin or Ether, all have X in them. Yeah. There are other interesting projects, but I don't want to talk about them until they're a certain market cap. I don't want to talk about low caps right now. Let's see, hold up. But if there's no questions, I'll probably end it soon. Going on for an hour. Let me know if you like this. I'm experimenting with different types of content, so I'm kind of doing some A/B testing, I guess. And if you like it, then I'll do more of it. If not, then I'll make different types of content. But yeah, I don't even know who's watching these videos anymore. I feel like everyone thinks DeFi is a scam. So, am I full-time crypto? Yes. I have no TradFi background, so I'm not that smart. I only have a poker background. But cool. Okay, I think that's it. I'll give it a few more minutes for any more questions. But aside from that, I think this was a pretty good stream. Hopefully, you learned. Make sure you. Oh yeah, let's look at my sub count. Hold up. It's so funny. Whenever I post videos, I lose subs. It's hilarious. Let's see. I wonder if I can check right now. Let's overview. hold up. Okay. Minus 200 subscribers in the month of July. Hold up. Let me get some better data so I can. And I don't want to dox my info and stuff. Hold up. June, 28 days. All right, there we go. Yeah, so every time this is whenever I upload a video. Whenever I upload a video, I lose subscribers. So ask yourself, is money flowing into the space or out of the space? And I'm sure, with this live stream, it's going to go down to minus 30 or something. So I interpret this as people think crypto is a scam. They don't want to deal with it. Whenever they see my videos on the feed, they're like, screw this guy, I'm going to unsubscribe. So that's kind of how I read into it, but not great. But yeah, it's whatever though. You guys aren't unsubbing. Yeah. What? Who knows? Maybe when people stop unsubscribing, maybe that's a risk on signal, right? No, I'm not going to work for a Web3 project. Oh, BK Mamba, new sub. We did it, boys. We got it. All right, that's enough. Thank you guys for watching. Have fun farming out there. Let me know if you like this on Twitter, YouTube comments, whatever. And we'll see if I do this next week. I'm traveling to see family next week, so maybe the schedule might be a little bit off, but I'll try my best.